It was on July the 10th that the Luftwaffe launched the first massive attacks clearly intended to draw RAF fighters into combat. July the 10th is the day officially recognized as the start of the Battle of Britain. The Luftwaffe's target was a convoy codenamed Bread, heading from the Thames estuary to the Dover Straits. The raiders were 27 Dorniers of the 2nd Bomber Wing, escorted by 24 110s and the same number of 109s. To meet them, elements of 4 British squadrons were scrambled. 56 and 111 squadrons fielded 18 Hurricanes. 32 Squadron from Biggin Hill scrambled another 6. And 74 Squadron from Hornchurch joined in with 6 Spitfires. In all, 30 British fighters met 75 German aircraft. In a vicious dogfight, 9 German raiders were destroyed and 4 damaged. The RAF lost 1 fighter shot down, 2 crash-landed and 2 damaged. Only 1 ship was sunk. Although such a rate of exchange was perfectly acceptable to fighter command, the results of future clashes would not always be so favourable. On the 19th, when a major battle was fought in the defence of 9 convoys, 11 British aircraft were lost for only 4 Germans shot down. During the following weeks, as increasing numbers of ships were sunk by German bombs, Hugh Dowding faced insistent demands from the Admiralty and from Downing Street that he do more to defend the convoys. As a compromise, he agreed to mount a limited number of standing patrols, a severe drain on his resources. With the real battle yet to begin, the number of sorties flown by fighter command was already reaching as many as 600 a day. During the Channel fighting, many British pilots gained their first experience of air-to-air combat. Already, some valuable lessons had been learned. Unofficially, many flyers had begun harmonizing their guns so their fire converged at 250 yards instead of the prescribed 650, to get more concentrated hitting power at close range. The new De Wilde incendiary bullet was proving a valuable aid to marksmanship, and a popular mix of ammunition amongst experienced pilots was to load 2 guns with standard bullets, 2 with armour-piercing rounds, and 2 with incendiaries. Veteran flyers concluded that closely harmonised guns and incendiary bullets made the difference between damaging a German aircraft and shooting it out of the sky. The performance of British fighters was also being improved. New constant pitch propeller units were fitted to increasing numbers of Spitfires and Hurricanes. As a result, British and German fighters were more closely matched than ever before. In spite of this, a disturbing trend was emerging in the Channel combats. British pilots were all too often coming off badly in fighter-to-fighter encounters. The problem, although few realised it, lay with desperately inadequate RAF tactics. standard RAF unit was a Vic of 3 aircraft, flying in close formation. In a turn, the 2 inside aircraft had to throttle back to allow the one outside to accelerate round. Manoeuvres had to be gentle if flyers were to hold their place, and much of the agility of the single-seat fighter was lost. Equally dangerous, a 3-aircraft formation would eventually break in the turmoil of combat, and there was a very high chance that one pilot would be left flying alone. For a fighter pilot, the most dangerous situation imaginable. The British fighter squadron was made up of 12 aircraft, split into 2 flights, each of 2 Vics. Because the fighters were packed tightly together, the formation was easy to spot in the sky, and the high risk of collision meant that little of any pilot's attention could be devoted to watching for the enemy. Sometimes an extra aircraft was placed to weave behind and keep a lookout. Alone and highly vulnerable, the chances of survival for a tail-end Charlie were slim, and the practice was soon abandoned. The tactics of the Luftwaffe were immeasurably better suited to the realities of air fighting. The basic formation was the Rota of 2 aircraft, a leader and his wingman whose duty it was to support the leader at all times. 2 Rota made up a section, or Schwarm, normally well spaced and staggered in height and position. The Schwarm was difficult to spot in the sky. It gave plenty of room to each aircraft, and so the time to keep a sharp lookout, and it was easy to maneuver. German fighter pilots had reinvented the First World War crossover turn, in which every aircraft flies at the same speed, but positions within the Schwarm are reversed. No throttle adjustments were needed, and the turn could be tight and fast. 3 Schwarmen, formed up loosely abreast and well spaced, made up a Staffel, or squadron of 12 aircraft. In the first 6 weeks of Channel fighting, the Luftwaffe dropped nearly 2,000 tons of bombs and sank almost 40,000 tons of British shipping. The cost to the German Air Force was 316 aircraft. In those same 6 weeks, the RAF lost just over 200 Spitfires and Hurricanes. As yet, the loss of aircraft posed no real danger to fighter command. Deliveries from the factories were at the highest level ever. The real danger lay with the toll of veteran pilots. A high proportion of casualties had been squadron or flight leaders, the most experienced flyers in fighter command. With a full-scale German offensive about to be unleashed, less than half of the RAF's remaining fighter pilots had any combat experience whatsoever. By the first week in August, the Luftwaffe had virtually completed its build-up for the Eagle Offensive, the all-out attack on the RAF that was intended to win air supremacy over southern England in a matter of days. The aircraft and the men were in place. Bombs, ammunition and fuel were stockpiled, and the forces were fully organized for the battle ahead. The Luftwaffe in the west was divided into 3 Luftflotten, or air fleets, each a self-contained force of bomber, fighter, reconnaissance and support units. Of the 3